In this video, I discuss the average retirement age with the data we have here in 2023. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
There's a lot of discussion on the internet about how the retirement age has come down because of the pandemic. If you review the data, it's important to note that while there are pockets of truth to this, the overall average retirement age has been going up steadily over the last 20 years. But determining the average retirement age is not as simple as you would think. If you're watching this video and you're looking for me to give you one number, one age, I'll certainly give that to you, but it's also important to note that the variables in and of themselves, many of them anyway, have a different age, and I'll discuss those as well. This data comes from the Center for Retirement Research, which is a retirement think tank, and it's rich in data. For anybody that is interested in doing your own research, I highly recommend this website. Admittedly, it's not a site that you can casually surf. Most research sites, by the way, provide great data, but they're not designed for people to just go in and read the information. They provide all of the evidence and also the conclusion, and they use a scientific method to get that information to you. So it's not going to be an easy site to surf for most of you. There are at least 6 variables that affect retirement age. They are gender, education, the state in which you live, savings, lifestyle, and the overall health of the individual. We'll discuss the average age in most of these categories next, and at the end we'll discuss the overall average for those of you who want that number. Number 1 is gender. Men retire on average at age 65 and women retire on average at age 62. This has trended out over the last 20 years. In 1992, the numbers were 62 and 59 respectively. There are several reasons for this, by the way, but the biggest one is that the age gap between men and women is 2.3 years, with the man being older than the woman in most cases. There's also an element of stay-at-home parenting, but this isn't as big as you would think, because frankly, whether you're a man or a woman who stays at home and raises the child, once the children leave the nest, that individual tends to go back to work. The next element is education. Those with a higher education level tend to work longer than those with a lower education level. The reason is counterintuitive, but if you look at the statistics, someone with a college degree tends to earn more than someone with only a high school diploma, all else being equal. So why would someone who earns more work later? The reason, by the way, is those with only a high school diploma tend to work jobs that are manual labor in nature. This in turn tends to make the body wear out more quickly. On the flip side, those with college education tend to work in the office, and that brings its own set of problems, but wear and tear on the body is not one of them. Next up is the state where the person retires. This information comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, not the Center for Retirement Research. Point number 1 to make here is that those that live in expensive states tend to retire later than those that live in less expensive states. If you look at the ins, Hawaii has the highest average retirement age at age 66, and Alaska has the lowest average retirement age at age 61. While Alaska isn't the least expensive state to live in the United States, it is 22% less expensive than Hawaii. The unemployment rate is currently 4.5% in Alaska and 3.3% in Hawaii. So necessity and opportunity come into play with Hawaii and Alaska. The next 3 are huge determinants, but there's no exact age. Rather, the information is directional. Savings will be a huge determinant on when someone retires. It's logical, of course, but it needs to be identified. Those with more savings, investments, and other assets going to retirement will tend to retire earlier, and those with less will tend to retire later. It's also worth pointing out that in order to retire with a large nest egg, one either needs to have a few good years at the end, or they need to plan well throughout their life. And frankly, those that save consistently and plan and think about their retirement throughout their working life tend to have a goal in mind from the get-go, or pretty close to it, and because they have a goal, they tend to reach it more quickly. The next point is retirement lifestyle. As we've talked about on many videos, there are many ways to enjoy retirement. From a simple life filled with family, friends, and a lot of laughs, to what I call the rock and roll lifestyle, where you're jetting around to different countries and seeing different things that you were too busy to see while you were working, and now is your moment. As you would expect, if you want to live the rock and roll lifestyle and spend a lot of money in retirement, you need a lot of money, and therefore you will tend to work longer than if you just want to retire and exist peacefully with those that you love. I will point out that there is an exception to this, and that's someone who arranges their lives to live a rock and roll lifestyle, and they take the big jobs, they do what is necessary, they take a lot of risks, and throughout their life, they have been big earners. That type of person tends to also want to retire and live life the same way, all things being equal. So this brings us to the answer to the question, what is the average retirement age overall? In isolation, the answer to this question doesn't mean much. It's a lot like saying, what's the average weight of a 60-year-old? The answer, by the way, is 201.2 pounds, but again, that doesn't mean anything because you don't have a second data point. If you ask the question, what is the average weight of a 60-year-old who is a certain height, that would be very relevant. And if you took it even one step further and you said, what is the average weight of a 60-year-old with a certain height and also a certain body type, that would make it more relevant still. The overall answer, by the way, is age 63. But as you can see from the variables, that may or may not apply to you. You could be working longer than you need to. Conversely, you might not be working long enough to cover your retirement. Speaking of that, check out my last video on how to reduce the risk that you outlive your money in retirement. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.